The sound of the hairdryer stopped me cold. I thought I'd come home early to surprise my wife, but instead, I walked into a nightmare I never saw coming. I stood there in the doorway of my own bathroom, key still warm in my palm from unlocking the front door, and I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The air had turned to something thick and suffocating, pressing against my chest like a hand. My suitcase hung from my fingers. I'd come home early from the business trip, you see. Thought I'd surprise Ruth, buy her that medicine for her stomach. She'd been in pain lately, the ulcers flaring up again, and I couldn't stand the thought of her at some work dinner, smiling through the agony the way she always did. But the surprise, as it turned out, was mine. Through the half-length mirror, the one Ruth had insisted on installing last year, the one I'd spent an entire Sunday mounting to the wall, I could see them. Ruth, and the man, a stranger wearing my pajamas, the blue ones with the small tear near the collar that I'd pointed out to her once, embarrassed. She'd bought them for me months ago, had looked almost hurt when I'd said they didn't quite suit me. I'd worn them anyway, every night since. Because that's what you do when someone gives you something, isn't it? You accept it. You're grateful. But now those same pajamas clung to someone else's shoulders. Ruth stood on her tiptoes, the hairdryer humming in her hand like some kind of domestic hymn. "Lower your head a bit," she said, and her voice had a softness to it I'd never heard before, a complaint wrapped in cotton. "Why are you so tall?" The man laughed, actually laughed, a low, warm sound that seemed to fill the bathroom with an intimacy I couldn't name, and then he bent down, obediently, tenderly, bringing his damp hair closer to her waiting hands. That's when I saw her face in the mirror, the expression there. Her lips curved upward just slightly, and her eyes, God, her eyes held something I'd spent 5 years searching for, something gentle, something alive. The word that came to mind was impossible, ludicrous even. Gentle. Ruth had never been gentle, not with me, not with anyone. She was ice and angles, all sharp edges and measured distance. When we'd married 5 years ago, I'd told myself it was just her nature. Some people are warm, some people are cool. You can't fault someone for being themselves. And she was different with me than with others, warmer, I'd thought, present. I'd convinced myself that the small smiles, the ones that never quite reached her eyes, were enough, that I was enough. But watching her now, watching the way she looked at this stranger, I understood with a sickening clarity that I'd been lying to myself, that those smiles had been performative, professional, the way you smile at a colleague you respect but don't particularly like. I leaned against the doorframe, my mind a white noise of static and fractured thoughts. My hands had gone numb, or maybe they'd clenched so tight the blood couldn't flow. I couldn't tell anymore. Everything felt distant and immediate at once, like watching a car accident unfold in slow motion while sitting in the driver's seat. I knocked, rapped my knuckles against the open door, the sound cutting through their little bubble like scissors through silk. "Excuse me, you two." The atmosphere shattered. Ruth's hand jerked, the hairdryer swinging wildly before she fumbled it off. The man looked up, his expression sliding from confusion to something else, maybe understanding, amusement. His eyebrow arched, and he smiled at me. Actually smiled, with this edge of provocation that made my jaw ache from clenching. Ruth stumbled, gasped. The man caught her, his hand steadying her shoulders, and I watched my own hand, the one I'd instinctively reached out to help her with, freeze in midair like a fool's. "Jack!" Her voice had gone sharp, cold, back to the Ruth I knew. "Why are you back early?" I lowered my hand, crossed my arms over my chest because I needed something to hold on to, even if it was just myself. "What did I interrupt? Your good time? Have you two already gone to bed, or are you just about to?" "Jack!" Her face darkened, eyes flashing with anger. "What nonsense are you talking about?" The suitcase hit the floor with a dull thud that echoed in the suddenly too small bathroom. "Then you might as well see what you're doing. A man and a woman. Bathroom. Playing so extravagantly." "Jack!" She was furious now, glaring at me like I was the one who'd done something wrong, like I was the intruder in my own home. The man stepped forward then, actually stepped forward and positioned himself between us, shielding her. "Mr. Jack," he said, and his tone carried this weight of judgment that made my skin crawl. "You've misunderstood. There's nothing sordid between Ruth and me. We're just friends. Is it appropriate for you to speak about your wife like that?"
I laughed. Couldn't help it. The sound scraped out of my throat like gravel. "If you insist on saying such shameless things, shouldn't you let go of my wife's hand first? Is it soft? Nice to touch? Enjoyable?" His expression changed, hardened. "Mr. Jack, if you're dissatisfied with me, you can say it directly. There's no need to speak like that about Ruth." "What words? Vulgar? Low class? You don't say it, but you act it." "You—" He lunged forward, but Ruth grabbed his arm. "Everyone shut up!" Her voice cracked through the air like a whip. The man turned to her, incredulous. "Ruth, am I going to just let you be slandered like this?" I scoffed. "What else should you do? Help curse at me? Hit me? That would only complicate things, especially since I'm still on the same household registration as her. Or be brave. Tell me about your true love. I'm a good-hearted person, most willing to support true love." "Shut up!" Ruth grabbed my hand, her grip desperate, almost painful, and dragged me out of the bathroom, down the hall, into the bedroom. She slammed the door behind us with enough force to make the picture frames rattle on the walls. For the first time in our marriage, I saw Ruth lose control. She stood there, chest heaving, hands trembling at her sides. The bedroom was immaculate, the bed perfectly made, not a wrinkle in the sheets, not a pillow out of place. I clicked my tongue, the sound sharp in the charged silence. "Looks like you haven't had a chance to sleep yet. I came back too early." "Jack, shut up!" She blazed. "Do you have to say such harsh things? You weren't like this before." "What do you think I should be like? Silent after being cheated on? You're overthinking it. I was born into the streets. This is the real me. Surprised? Unexpected?" Ruth took a deep breath, visibly trying to compose herself. When she spoke again, her voice had regained some of its usual measured calm. "Jack, I don't want to argue with you. We can talk about this later. He's my college classmate, just back from abroad, temporarily has no place to stay, so I let him stay here for one night. Stop making a fuss." "Is this what you wanted to say when you closed the door?"
The question burned in my throat, but I didn't ask it. Her silence told me everything. The disappointment settled over me like a wet blanket, heavy and suffocating. I'd come in here, let her drag me in here because some stupid, desperate part of me had hoped she'd explain, hoped she'd make it make sense, that she'd give me a reason to believe this wasn't what it looked like. But she'd given me nothing, just excuses, the kind you make to placeholders, to people who don't really matter. "Got it," I said flatly. "Staying at home, right? No problem. Feel free." I turned toward the door. "Jack!" She grabbed for me, her nails digging into my wrist hard enough to sting. "Where are you going?" I looked at her hand, then at her face, genuinely shocked. "A threesome? I can't do that." Her grip tightened, nails breaking skin now. It hurt, really hurt. "Jack, what are you going crazy about?" I yanked my hand away with more force than necessary. "Am I going crazy, or are you? Do you even know what you're doing, Ruth?" I couldn't look at her anymore. Couldn't stand to see her standing there, self-righteous and bewildered. "Stop! Stop disgusting me!" I walked out. The man, David, I'd learned his name was David, stood in the living room now, changed out of my pajamas and into a sharp suit. He looked presentable, almost apologetic. He forced a smile at Ruth, who'd followed me out. Ruth, I think I should leave first. I don't want to trouble you. He turned to me, holding out my pajamas like some kind of peace offering. Mr. Jack, you really misunderstood. This is your pajama. I'll return it to you. I stepped back, let the fabric fall to the floor between us. Trash should be thrown in the trash can. What do you think this is? Ruth's head snapped up. For a moment, just a flicker, something raw crossed her face. Then it hardened into resolve. No need to leave, she said, her voice cutting. You can stay here. David's eyes lit up, but he hesitated. Isn't this inappropriate, you and Mr. Jack? You don't need to worry, Ruth interrupted. If I say stay, then stay. Otherwise, go stay at a hotel. Can you even afford it? He sighed, a small smile at his lips. You really know me. Their casual banter, the easy familiarity of it made my stomach turn. I grabbed my suitcase from where it sat abandoned near the bathroom. Didn't say another word. Just left.
The stairs seemed longer than usual, each step echoing in the empty stairwell. When I pushed through the building's front door, the night air hit me like a slap. Cold, December cold, the kind that seeps into your bones and stays there. I shivered, and then the nausea came without warning. I bent over, one hand braced against the rough brick wall, and retched. Nothing came up but bile and the bitter taste of humiliation. My eyes watered, my throat burned. Somewhere in the rational part of my brain still functioning, I catalogued the emotions: sad, heartbroken, angry, wronged. But they all bled together into something overwhelming and shapeless, something I couldn't name or contain. Exhausted. That's what I was. Utterly, completely exhausted. The facade I'd maintained in that apartment, the calm, the sarcastic detachment, crumbled. Right there on the sidewalk at 1 a.m, I fell apart in the way I'd never let myself fall apart in front of Ruth. It was absurd, really, laughable. I'd never imagined infidelity would happen with Ruth. People had warned me, of course. When a man gets rich, he becomes bad, they'd say. Then they lean in, voices dropping. Actually, women are the same. Especially in families like yours where the woman is strong and the man is weak. You need to pay more attention. I dismissed it, resented it even. I didn't care that people said Ruth was better than me, richer, more successful, more connected. It was true, after all, objectively, factually true. But I'd believed in her, in us. I thought that even if things fell apart between us, even if we reached some breaking point, it would at least end amicably, civilly. That would have nothing to do with love and everything to do with character. But reality, as it turns out, has a talent for humiliation. Ruth, what are you doing? And who is that man? The questions chased themselves around my skull as I drove to the old house, the one Ruth and I had lived in for the first 2.5 years of our marriage, before we'd upgraded to the apartment downtown. I preferred this house, the creaking floorboards, the way afternoon light slanted through the kitchen window, the small garden out back that never quite flourished no matter how much Ruth tended it. Sometimes when things got too heavy, when the weight of existence pressed down too hard, I'd come here, sleep on the lumpy sofa, let the familiar walls remind me of simpler times. Tonight felt worse than ever.
The storage room smelled of dust and old paper. I found what I was looking for quickly: the photo album someone had given Ruth during her college years. A birthday gift. Thoughtful in that overly romantic way only young people can manage. It was filled with photos of Ruth, some alone, some with others. Candid shots, mostly, capturing her in profile, her gaze always somewhere distant. I'd asked her once, back when we were still new, "Who gave you this?" A college classmate, she'd said. Did he like you? She hadn't denied it, just murmured him in a way that suggested the story was old and finished and not worth discussing. I'd let it drop. Why wouldn't I? The past is the past. What matters is the present, the now, the way someone treats you today. Isn't that what they always say? But as I flipped through the album now, in the dim light of the storage room, each photo felt like evidence of my own stupidity. Ruth in her graduation gown, unsmiling but alive in a way I'd never seen. Ruth with friends, her body language open, relaxed. Ruth laughing, actually laughing at something off camera. Then I found it, the group photo. Two people, standing close, too close, their arms pressed together, the boy leading left with his head thrown back in genuine joy. The girl, Ruth, not smiling, but her hand clutched the sleeve of her own shirt, bunching the fabric in her fist. The gesture spoke of nervousness, of wanting. I recognized him immediately. David. I flipped the photo over. Two names, written in careful handwriting. Ruth, David. And between them, small and deliberate, a heart.
The sound of renovations upstairs woke me. Drilling, hammering, the rhythmic thud of construction that rattles your teeth. I'd fallen asleep on the sofa sometime after 3 and slept poorly, if you could call it sleep. That half-conscious state where you're aware of being unconscious, where dreams and reality blur into something anxiety-soaked and oppressive. When I finally opened my eyes, mine still foggy, it took me a moment to remember where I was. The old house. Right. The storage room door hung open, the photo album still visible on the floor where I'd left it. And Ruth sat in the armchair across from me, watching. Not lurking, not hiding, just there, staring at me with an unblinking intensity that would have been unsettling if I hadn't grown used to her ways over the years. She'd done this before, shown up unannounced when I'd run away after a fight. I asked her once, "How did you know I'd be here?" "Where else could you go?" she'd said. She was right, of course. I had nowhere else. No family, no childhood home to retreat to, no parents to call crying in the middle of the night. Ruth had given me this house, this refuge, and she knew it. "Let's keep it," she'd said when I'd suggested selling. "If someone gets upset, they can hide away for a bit." Someone. Not you, not I, just someone. Generic, impersonal. My feelings for Ruth were complicated. Love and gratitude tangled so tight I couldn't separate them anymore. She'd saved me, really, literally saved me, and I'd built a marriage on that foundation. Thought we could have a simple life together. Thought that would be enough. I sighed and went to the bathroom to wash my face. When I came out, she'd set breakfast on the coffee table. Congee. Still steaming. Some pickled vegetables. The usual. I sat down and ate. Didn't thank her. What was the point? "His name is David. Your ex-boyfriend." The photo album was right there on the table. No point in pretending. "Yes," Ruth said. I looked up at her. Chopsticks paused halfway to my mouth. "Ruth, what are you doing? Bringing your ex-boyfriend home, letting him wear my pajamas, blow-drying his hair. Are you reenacting some kind of long-lost reunion? Lingering feelings? Help me understand." Believe it or not, nothing happened between us. I shook my head slowly. Set the chopsticks down. I don't believe it. Ruth's expression turned serious. She rubbed her forehead. A tell, I'd learned, that she was about to say something she'd rehearsed, and placed 2 receipts in front of me.
He stayed at my place last night. I stayed at the hotel. This is proof. If you need, I can check the surveillance. Nothing happened between us. That's a fact. I didn't look at the receipts. Didn't need to. If Ruth was putting evidence in front of me, it wasn't fake. She wasn't that kind of person. He stayed at your place, I said slowly. And you stayed at the hotel? Yes. Why? He has a light sleep and he's a germaphobe. He can't stay in a hotel. Something snapped inside me. The careful control I'd been maintaining, the civility I'd been clinging to, just broke. Did he tell you that? My voice rose despite myself. Or are you just being understanding? Jack. No, seriously, light sleep, germaphobe, can't stay in a hotel? Is he just that precious, that special? I've stayed in some real shitholes on business trips, Ruth. Motels with stained sheets and suspicious smells and walls thin enough to hear every conversation in the building. Never heard you care about that. Not once. So what makes David so different? Is he inherently more noble than everyone else? Or is he just more important to you than I ever was? Ruth stood too, her calm fracturing. I've already moved out. I've told you nothing happened. What more do you want? The words hit me like a physical blow. The room tilted, my vision swimming. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. Divorce, I heard myself say. I want a divorce. Ruth's face went white, then red. Shut up! Take that back! Ruth, take it back! I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something I couldn't quite name. Desperation, maybe. Or fear. Her fists were clenched so tight her knuckles had gone white. And her eyes held something raw and pleading that I had never seen before. She closed them, took a breath. When she opened them again, that vulnerability had vanished, replaced with the cool composure I knew so well. No, she said flatly. Divorce is impossible.
We fell into a cold war after that. I stayed at the old house. She stayed wherever she stayed. We didn't call, didn't text. The silence stretched between us like a canyon. And I told myself I was grateful for it, that I needed the space to think, to process, to figure out how to untangle 5 years of my life from someone who apparently never wanted them in the first place. I was waiting, I think, for the anger to fade, for clarity to replace the chaos. I wanted to handle this efficiently, clinically, like a business transaction that had gone south. Cut losses, move on. But then, her assistant called. Senior? The young woman's voice was hesitant, worried. I'd helped her get the job with Ruth years ago, after she'd faced rejection after rejection. She was capable, hardworking, and she'd stayed grateful. Kept in touch even though she didn't need to. What happened? I asked. A pause. Did you and Ruth have a fight? First time she'd ever mentioned Ruth to me directly. Why? Because Ruth has a social engagement tonight and drank quite a bit. I was going to call you, but a strange man came and took Ruth away in her car. My hand tightened around the phone. Send me a photo. The man. A moment later, my phone buzzed. I opened the message. David. Of course it was David. Senior? Her voice was small. Are you okay? I surprised myself by laughing. I'm fine. Even better, actually. I hung up and sat there in the growing darkness of the old house, David's smug face glowing on my phone screen, and I understood with perfect clarity what I needed to do. Divorce, as quickly as possible, before I lost any more than I already had. The next morning, I found a lawyer, had them draft a divorce agreement. It was simple. Ruth and I had always kept our finances separate. The agreement was just a formality, really, a piece of paper to make official what had already been true for months. We were strangers who happened to share a bed. I showed up at her company unannounced. The receptionist tried to stop me, but I walked right past her, took the elevator to the executive floor, and pushed open Ruth's office door without knocking. She looked up from her computer, startled. For just a second, something flickered across her face. Hope? Relief? Before her expression smoothed into professional neutrality.
"This is the company," she said evenly. "Let's talk about it at home." "Home?" I placed the divorce agreement on her desk, careful to center it perfectly in front of her. "Let's talk about it here. Sign it so we can get the divorce finalized. There's still time today." Ruth stared at the document for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. "You came to find me just for this?" The answer was obvious, beneath my contempt to state. She picked up the agreement, held my gaze, and tore it in half. I pulled out another copy. She tore that one too. I had 12 copies in my briefcase. She tore through every single one, her movements becoming more violent with each rip, until paper scraps littered the pristine surface of her desk like snow. By the 12th copy, her face had gone dark with fury. "Jack, have you thought this through?" I scoffed. Did I look like I was playing around? She grabbed the final copy, the one I'd pulled out just to prove my point, and signed her name with sharp, angry strokes, slammed the pen down. "Let's go." We drove separately to the Civil Affairs Bureau. The day was overcast, the sky that flat gray that promises rain but never delivers. We parked, walked inside without speaking, took a number. The wait wasn't long. We were lucky, not many people getting divorced on a Wednesday afternoon. The clerk, a middle-aged woman with reading glasses on a chain, looked between us with practiced sympathy. "Have you both made up your minds?" "Yes," I said immediately. Ruth's gaze fell on me like a weight. "And you? Have you made up your mind?" I looked at her then, really looked at her, tried to find something, anything that would make me want to stay, some crack in her armor, some hint of the person I'd thought I'd married. She looked away first. "Yes," she said coldly. "All right," the clerk said, turning to her computer. "I'll help you register, and you can come back for the divorce certificate in a month." "Wait!" Ruth's voice cut through the air like a knife. The clerk's fingers paused on the keyboard. "What is it?" Ruth turned to me, her expression unreadable. "Jack, are you sure you want a divorce?" "Absolutely." She stood up so abruptly her chair toppled backward with a crash that echoed through the quiet office. Every head turned toward us. "Jack, you're ruthless." Then she turned and walked out, her heels clicking against the tile floor in sharp, retreating beats.
I sat there, stunned. The clerk looked at me apologetically. "I'm sorry, but if both parties don't agree—" "I know," I said. I chased after Ruth, found her in the parking lot, already at her car. "Ruth, stop!" She spun around and slapped me. The crack of palm against cheek was sharp, definitive. My head snapped to the side, and for a moment I just stood there, my face stinging, too shocked to process what had happened. "I'll say it one last time," Ruth said, her voice low and dangerous. "I cannot divorce you." My anger, the anger I've been containing, managing, pushing down, ignited. "What do you mean you can't? Are you playing with me?" "Jack," she took a deep breath, visibly trying to control herself. "How long are you going to make a scene? Just because of some baseless accusation, you run away from home and want a divorce. Do you find this amusing? You're a grown man. Why are you being so petty? Do you know how exhausting this is for me?" I stared at her. "I'm making a scene?" "Yes." "Ruth," I said quietly, and my calmness seemed to unsettle her more than my anger had. "I'm not making a scene. I really want a divorce." "Why?" She sounded genuinely bewildered. "Because of David? There's nothing between us, nothing at all. Why won't you believe me?" "How can I believe you?" I shook my head. "Let me ask you, where does David live now? Is it a place you arranged? Doesn't he still not have a car, so you gave him one?" Why did he come to pick you up after you got drunk? Where did you go after he picked you up? What happened? With each question, I felt myself spiraling further into something dark and caustic. I shook my head. Actually, we don't even need to discuss this. Just that one night, if I hadn't come back, what would have happened? Nothing would have happened. Ruth was increasingly agitated. I went to the hotel because it was prearranged. If you don't believe me, you can ask. I don't believe you. The words hung in the air between us. This is the second time I've said that, I continued. Ruth, I don't believe you. No matter what you say or do now, no matter how much evidence you present, it won't matter. I don't believe you anymore. I don't want to delve into what you did or what you both did. I simply don't believe you anymore. That's all.
I'm best at letting go. Had to be, to survive. Life has been unkind to me, and I learned early that you have to protect yourself. Can't let anything or anyone drag you down, because nobody's pulling you forward. I'm an orphan, but before I was Jack, I was just a ghost child, unwanted before I was even born. My father died in a car accident before I arrived. My biological mother discovered she was pregnant afterward and didn't want to give birth. Can't blame her for that. Why would she want the child of a dead man? Why would she want to be tied to that tragedy forever? But my grandparents begged, pleaded. Please, they said, he's all we have left of our son. Please. So they made a deal. They gave her everything. My father's life savings, the compensation from the accident, every cent they could scrape together. Bought me, essentially. Paid for my existence. She gave birth, stayed through her confinement period, then took the money and left. Never looked back. I was raised by my grandparents in that old house, the one I'd eventually sell for a fraction of its worth. They loved me, I know they did, but love doesn't fill a stomach, or pay for school, or keep the roof from leaking. We were poor. The kind of poor where you dig through mud for coins, where every meal is a calculation, where winter means choosing between heat and food. They died when I was in middle school. First my grandmother, then my grandfather 6 months later. I like to think he died of a broken heart, that he couldn't stand being without her. It's more romantic than the truth, which is that poverty grinds you down until there's nothing left. At 13, I became a complete orphan. The sadness was crushing, the despair infinite. The longing for something, anything, to hold on to nearly killed me. But I gave myself a month, 1 month to feel everything, to break down, to fall apart. And then I stood up and started living again, because what else was there to do? Someone wanted to buy the old house when I was 16, offered me $100,000. Everyone said I was a fool to accept, that I was being taken advantage of, that the house was worth more. And they were right. But I also knew I couldn't hold on to it, couldn't maintain it. If I couldn't keep it, I had to let it go. Besides, I needed the money, for school, for food, for surviving. So I sold it and left. That's what I'm good at, letting go, surviving, moving forward. And now, Ruth, who I'd thought I could build a life with, was asking me to do the impossible, to believe her, to trust her, to ignore everything I'd seen and felt and known in my bones. Let's get a divorce, I said tiredly. Don't make it too ugly. Impossible. Her determination to stay married was as absolute as my determination to leave. The disconnect was almost funny. Unable to reach an agreement, I filed for divorce with the court. The next day, Ruth imposed economic sanctions. She terminated all cooperation with my company. Every contract, every deal, every partnership we'd built over 5 years, gone. Cut off with surgical precision. We'd met because of business, Ruth and I. I'd just graduated college, was starting a company with some alumni. We were young, ambitious, stupid with hope. Believed we could conquer anything if we just worked hard enough. Reality had other plans.
We had no funds, no connections. No one would even give us a meeting. Investors looked at our pitch deck and laughed. We were nobodies from nowhere, trying to play in a world that had no space for us. I was ready to give up, ready to find a normal job, settle into a normal life, let the dream die quietly. Then someone reached out, said they wanted to talk. I thought we'd been saved. Turns out it was just a different kind of drowning. The person in charge, a man, older, powerful, made his terms clear. Sleep with me for a year, and I'll give you whatever you want. I refused, obviously. What else could I do? He wouldn't let me leave, cornered me in the office, hands grabbing, breath hot and disgusting. In the chaos, I smashed a bottle over his head, heard it crack, saw the blood. I was arrested. The man threatened to make me rot in jail. And I believed him. I'd prepared for the worst, for years behind bars, for my life to end before it had really begun. But then Ruth appeared. She was like something out of a story, beautiful, composed, untouchable. She bailed me out, settled everything with a phone call, sent someone to negotiate with my company, offered us the partnership we'd been desperate for. So I started unbuttoning my shirt, half smiling through the shame, and asked, "Shall we get straight to it? Do you need me to take a shower?" She buttoned my shirt back up, one button at a time, gentle, almost maternal. No need for that.
Maybe they were right. One of them cleared his throat. "Look, Jack, different paths, different goals. You want out? Fine. But the rest of us, we're comfortable where we are." I understood then. They'd already made their choice. They'd chosen Ruth, chose stability, chose the path of least resistance. I didn't blame them, not really. After all, I taught them to survive first, dream second. So I moved back into the apartment with Ruth, slept in the guest room, or tried to. Couldn't stop wondering which room David had stayed in that night, which sheets he'd touched, what he'd used. Every surface felt contaminated. I ended up on the sofa with a clean sheet from the linen closet, and even then, I barely slept. When I woke up, there was a blanket covering me. Ruth was in the kitchen frying eggs. The domestic scene would have been touching if it hadn't made me want to scream. "Who told you to cover me with a blanket?" I demanded. She paused, spatula in hand, took a breath. "The sheets and duvet cover have all been changed. They're clean." "It doesn't matter," I said coldly. "Even the air in this room makes me sick." "Jack," her voice sharp now, "you're going too far. He only stayed for one night. Nothing happened. What are you making a fuss about?" "Wait until I bring a woman home," I said. "Let her wear your pajamas. Let me hug her while I blow dry her hair. Then you'll understand." Her eyes flashed. "You dare?" I shook my head. "It's not that I wouldn't dare. It's that I wouldn't do such a disgusting thing, because I have principles." She threw the eggs, pan and all, into the trash, stormed back to her room, slammed the door hard enough to rattle the walls. I slammed mine harder. We fell back into Cold War. Days passed, then weeks. I barely saw her. Left early, came home late, lived like a ghost in my own home. During that time, I was busy, meeting people, negotiating, discussing the sale of my company equity. My partner should have been my first choice for buyers, but their position was too clear. They were on Ruth's side, not mine. So I went to outsiders, dispersed the equity among multiple buyers, ensuring no single person had decision-making power. The negotiations went smoothly. Money came in. I prepared to walk away completely. When my former partners found out, they stormed into the office, red-faced and furious. "I gave you a choice," I said calmly. "You didn't want it. This isn't so bad, actually. Ruth and I will eventually have a falling out, and then you won't be able to blame it on me.
Besides, kicking me out, that was something you considered too, wasn't it? They avoided my gaze. You're talking nonsense, one muttered. When did we ever? Only because you're afraid of Ruth, I interrupted. Otherwise, when the rabbit dies, the dog gets cooked. Who remembers whom? With the company matter resolved, there was only one thing left, the reckoning between Ruth and me. But before I could find her, David found me. He wanted to talk, he said. I agreed. We met at a cafe downtown, one of those sterile corporate places with uncomfortable chairs and overpriced coffee. He was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window, backlit by gray afternoon light. As soon as I sat down, he attacked. Why haven't you divorced her yet? Don't you have any dignity? A grown man being supported by a woman, how long are you going to cling to Ruth? I smiled. Couldn't help it. What position are you speaking from? A lover? A mistress? Or her kept canary? Because Ruth has always told me you have no relationship. Do you understand what that means? You don't even qualify to be a male mistress. His face went red. You're talking nonsense. How could Ruth not want a divorce? She doesn't like you. If it weren't for what? I leaned forward, genuinely curious now. He froze, caught himself mid-sentence. If it weren't for what? I repeated. David recovered, his expression shifting to something smug, self-satisfied. Haven't you ever been curious? You and Ruth are from two different worlds. Why did she suddenly appear in your life? Why did she inexplicably help you? Jack, you can't possibly think these are all coincidences, can you? You're so naive. What do you mean? He raised his eyebrows. Want to know? Then you have to beg me. I looked at him quietly, then scoffed. Then hold it in. Don't say a word. I stood to leave. Jack, stop! He panicked, half rising from his chair. Come back. I have something to show you. I paused at the door, debated. Then, against my better judgment, I walked back and sat down.
David lost his initial bravado, fumbled in his bag and pulled out a photograph, pushed it across the table toward me. This is Ruth, he said, and her foster mother. I looked at the photo casually. Ruth appeared to be about 5 or 6, small and thin in a way that suggested childhood hunger. If David hadn't identified her, I wouldn't have recognized her at all. But then I saw the woman in the photo. The world tilted. I knew this woman. Had seen her face before, years ago, at the very bottom of my grandmother's wardrobe, in a dark red notebook, a marriage certificate, 3 words on the cover. And inside, a photo of 2 people, my father, who died before I was born, and this woman, my mother, the one who took the money and left, the one who sold me before I even had a name. Ruth was an orphan, David was saying, his voice distant now, muffled like I was hearing him through water. A true orphan, the kind raised in an orphanage. But she was lucky. When she was 6, she was adopted by a wealthy couple. They had no children and treated her as their own, especially her adoptive mother, who treated her no differently than a biological child. I couldn't breathe. Her adoptive father passed away from illness when she was 12. Her adoptive mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 6 years ago and died after 6 months. Before she died, she told Ruth that she actually had a son. She felt sorry for her son and hoped Ruth could help find him and take good care of him. David leaned back, watching me with that twisted smile again. Guess who that son is? The cafe spun. The sounds, espresso machines, conversations, the clink of cups, all blurred into white noise. I gripped the edge of the table. Ruth and I were still in love,
David continued. "And she suddenly broke up with me. Said she had to fulfill her mother's last wish. But why? She was my girlfriend. How could she just say we were done? If she had to fulfill her mother's wish, what about me?" He leaned forward, voice dropping to something venomous. "Jack, look how lucky you are. Your mother thought of you until her death, asking Ruth to protect you. But what about me? Why should your family matters sacrifice our love?" I took the photo, stared at the woman's face, the mother I'd never known, who'd never wanted to know me. David called after me as I left, but I didn't hear what he said. Didn't care.
"Ruth, we need to talk," I texted her. She arrived half an hour later, exhausted, leaned back on the sofa, massaging her temples. "What are we talking about?" Where to start? I placed the photo on the coffee table between us. "Let's be straightforward. So your adoptive mother is my biological mother." Ruth's hand froze mid-motion. "Who gave you this?" That question is meaningless. Let's talk about something meaningful. David. Ruth slumped back. I should have guessed it. He was the only one who'd seen this photo. "So," I said, "is there something you want to tell me?" Silence. Long and heavy. Just when I thought she wouldn't speak at all, she began. "My adoptive mother was a remarkable woman," Ruth said quietly. "She built her own cosmetics brand from nothing. Self-made, before that term became a cliché. Later, she met my adoptive father, and they got together. He couldn't have children, so she suggested adoption. That's how they found me." She looked at me, her eyes holding something I couldn't name. "The greatest fortune of my life was meeting them, becoming their child. But good times didn't last. My adoptive father passed away. My adoptive mother got cancer, and it was only then that I learned of your existence." She paused. "Jack, I hope you understand, she was always thinking of you. She never forgot you. The reason she was good to me was to make up for you. She transferred all her debts to me. She loved you. Her greatest wish before she passed away was for you to be well, for you to forgive her." She stopped, waited. I sat there in that same unprecedented calm that had settled over me in the bathroom that first night, waited for the emotions to come, the anger, the grief, the betrayal. But there was nothing, just empty, ringing silence. "I'm sorry for keeping this from you for so long." "Take care," I said softly. She looked at me, shocked. "Don't you have anything else to say?" I thought about it. "Then, for the sake of having the same mother, let's part amicably. Get the divorce done as soon as possible." "Jack!" "Ruth," I said her name gently, like you'd speak to a stranger you're trying not to spook. "Are you still holding a grudge against her? She's passed away. Can't you forgive her for the sake of the deceased?" I exhaled slowly, felt something crack inside my chest. Hate? Not really. If I had to describe it, unlucky. That's what this is. Unlucky. "Jack, shut up." I laughed. "All right, what do you want to hear?" I let the bitterness seep in now, let it poison my voice. "I forgive her. I love her to death. She's the best mother in the world, and I will remember and thank her for the rest of my life. Are you satisfied? If you need, I can even go to her grave and say it. So now, can we talk about the divorce?" "Jack, I know what my name is. You don't need to remind me repeatedly." Ruth's anger was palpable now, vibrating in the air between us. "I know you can't accept it right now. Don't rush. We can talk slowly when you're ready." I waved my hand dismissively. "No, let's talk now. Hurry up. You tell me what you want, what you need me to do. I can even go to your adoptive mother's grave every year, as long as you divorce me. Just let me go." Every word I said, every second spent in that room with her made me feel like I was suffocating, like there was something rotting inside me that I couldn't extract. "Jack, I won't divorce you. I promised my mother I would take good care of you." The words landed like a punch to the gut. "Great," I said. My voice sounded strange, distant. "The deceased are paramount. I don't want to slander your mother, but you're forcing me." Ruth frowned. Do you know where her money came from? The money to start her cosmetics empire? That was my father's life savings. His compensation from the accident that killed him. Every cent. She took it all and didn't leave a single penny." Ruth opened her mouth, closed it. "Do you know how ruthless she is, your adoptive mother?" I continued, and my voice had gone flat now, mechanical. "She was afraid my grandparents would stop her from leaving, so she pretended to take me out for a walk. Just a walk, she said. Then she abandoned me behind a barn to buy herself time. It was winter. I almost died back there." "Impossible!" Ruth's denial was automatic. "I don't hate her," I said again, and I meant it. "I hate that she wasted my energy. To me, she's an irrelevant stranger. But you insist on emphasizing that she loves me, that she cares for me, that she feels sorry for me." I stood up, needed to move, needed to do something with the buzzing energy crawling under my skin.
But when I was digging for money in the mud with my grandparents, facing the ground and back to the sky, where was she? When my grandparents passed away and others threatened to sell me if I didn't sell the house, where was she? When I was bullied and almost took a knife to end it all, where was she? In my sophomore year, when my money was stolen, tuition, living expenses, not a cent left, almost jumped off the top floor, where was she then? Ruth had gone pale. "We didn't know." She didn't know? Without emotions, she's a stranger. With emotions, she should go to hell. "That's not what I meant." Ruth was desperate now, trying to explain something she herself didn't understand. "She just didn't know how to face you." I laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was sharp and wrong. It's really hard for her, living comfortably without worries, yet still wanting me, this grain of sand, to grind her heart. I must be damned. "Jack, you people are really something," I continued, pacing now. "Because you feel guilty toward me, you compensate her. Did I die? Shouldn't the guilt toward me be compensated to me? She got cancer, afraid she wouldn't die in peace, so she dumped the responsibility on you. Allowed her to leave with a clear conscience. As for you, you owe gratitude, you owe debts, you have tasks to complete, so you marry me." I stopped, looked at Ruth directly. "How unfair is that? Why do you think the best compensation you can give me is to marry me? Do you think I can't find a wife? You might as well have given me more money back then. Really?" Ruth said nothing. "Let's get a divorce," I said quietly. "I came out of her womb. This is documented. Delivery records, birth certificate. It would be easy for me to prove I'm her son. If you still disagree, I can only sue you for the inheritance." That day, I rambled on for a long time. Ruth said a few things at first, but then remained quiet. Just listened. There was no possibility left between us. Divorce was inevitable.
3 days later, she agreed. This time, she drafted the divorce agreement herself, gave me most of her assets, company shares, properties, investments. A fortune, really. But I didn't look closely, wasn't concerned about those things. My psychologist once told me that my biggest problem was a lack of desire. No desire for anything, even money. "What do you want the most?" he'd ask during one session. "You need to find something you really want. Otherwise, Jack, you'll lack even a desire to survive." I'd thought for a long time.
then told him, "I want someone to love me." That's what I'd been working toward all this time. Living, working, becoming better, all so that someone, somewhere, might love me. But Ruth ruined that. Destroyed 5 years of my life with her pity and her promises and her dead mother's guilt. I hated her. But I couldn't let myself hate her. Couldn't let her leave such a deep mark on my heart. Had to tell myself she'd at least helped me once. Regardless of her motives, she'd saved me from danger. All I needed to do was let her go. You must decisively cast off those things that drag you down, my psychologist had said. Then move forward without hesitation. The one who loves you is ahead. So we register for divorce. A month later, we received the divorce certificate. I decided to leave the city. David left too. He found me before he went, looking defeated. "It's really meaningless," he said. "I couldn't let her go all these years, and it turns out to be nothing. Tell me, have I been feeding the dogs all these years?" He paused. "By the way, I apologize for interfering in your lives. I'm sorry." I didn't forgive him, but I didn't hate him either. He was just a passerby in my trashy years. Someone who'd tripped me, made me fall into the dust. I brushed off the dust, stood up, moved forward. I didn't look back. A true hero never looks back.
It wasn't until I left the city that Ruth truly began to understand me. I learned this later, much later, from someone who'd known her. Someone who said she'd changed after I'd gone. The Ruth of the past had seen me as merely a means of repayment. Marry him, give him resources, give him money. That was enough. I was just a vague symbol, thinner than paper. She couldn't see me making her medicine. Couldn't see me trying to make her happy. Couldn't see my expectations or my disappointment. Letting me live with her blind self for 5 years was indeed unlucky. 3 months after I left, she learned I'd been seeing a psychologist. She tried to get information from him, but he refused to disclose anything about his patient. However, he did say one thing. Living is very difficult for Jack, but he's been trying hard. He's the strongest patient I've ever seen. From that day on, Ruth began searching for me. She didn't want to disturb me, she told someone later, just wanted to know if I was safe. A year later, she found me. In a particularly small town, hours from anywhere. I'd chosen it specifically for that reason, its remoteness, its anonymity. But I wasn't alone. I was holding the hand of a toddling child. I can only imagine what Ruth felt in that moment. She told someone later that her face had gone pale, that she'd booked a flight that same night and rushed to the town. She saw me the next day. I'd darkened from the sun, thinned out from the work. But there was something softer about me, she said. Something that hadn't been there before. I was surprised to see her. Long time no see. She'd felt at a loss for words, she said. Long time no see. Her gaze kept drifting to the child. Finally, she asked, "Are you married?" I'd laughed. Seamless transition, not that impressive. He's adopted, an orphan. Her heart soared and plummeted in the same instant, she said later. She'd exhaled slowly, feeling like she'd survived something. It was at that moment she realized she wanted to reconcile with me, that she liked me, had maybe always liked me, in some way she'd never let herself acknowledge. But I said, "I will never get married again." She'd wanted to cry, she said. What had she done all these years? "Can I still come to see you?"
To see the child? I shook my head. It's best not to. Otherwise, I'll have to move again, which is quite troublesome. She'd felt so sad then, so lonely. She wanted to buy a house next to mine, wanted to settle down near me, wanted to insert herself back into my life in whatever way I'd allow. But she knew she couldn't do that. So she said goodbye. Goodbye, Jack. I smiled faintly. Let's each be well, and don't meet again.
A week after Ruth's appearance, I left anyway, packed up the house, took the child, and moved to another town she'd never find. I was telling her through my actions, don't look for me again. Don't disturb me. When she heard the news, she drank all night. Her stomach hurt so much it brought her to tears. But she'd lost the one who used to make her medicine. She gave up on searching for me after that. Wished me happiness, she told someone. Hoped I'd find what I was looking for. I think about Ruth sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. Usually when I'm making dinner for my son, the boy I adopted, the one who looks at me like I hung the moon. Or when I'm walking through the small town where we've settled, where people know my name and ask how I'm doing and actually wait for the answer. I don't hate her anymore. Don't love her either. She's become what she always should have been, a stranger who once helped me, someone I'm grateful to but don't need to carry with me. My psychologist was right. I had to cast off the things that were dragging me down, had to keep moving forward. The one who loves me is ahead, he'd said. He was wrong about one thing, though. The one who loves me isn't ahead. He's right here, small hands in mine, asking what's for dinner, telling me about his day, needing me in the way I'd once needed someone to need me. I don't need romantic love anymore. Don't need a Ruth or anyone like her. I have this. I have him. I have a life I built from nothing, in a town no one can find, with a future that belongs only to us. And that's enough. That's more than enough. Sometimes late at night when he's asleep and the house is quiet, I stand at the window and look out at the empty street. I think about the old house, about my grandparents, about the boy I used to be, digging for coins in the mud, selling his childhood home for a fraction of its worth, surviving on luck and stubbornness and the occasional mercy of strangers. I think about Ruth, too. Wonder if she's happy, if she found whatever she was looking for. I hope she did. I really do. Not for her sake, but for mine. Because the day I can genuinely hope for her happiness, without bitterness, without resentment, without that sick feeling in my stomach, is the day I'll know I'm finally free. I'm not there yet, but I will be. The one who loves me is here, in the next room, breathing softly in his sleep. And tomorrow we'll wake up and have breakfast together and continue building this quiet, ordinary, beautiful life. The life I always wanted. The life I finally have.